Good evening, everyone. It's Michelle Carter from the Aram Public Library. We have a very special treat for you. Mystery author Ann Ribar is here to share her murder mysteries and her writing process with us. Joy has written not one, not two, but three mysteries, and she'll be talking about her newest and the ones that we have in our collection tonight. So welcome, Joy.
Well, hi. Thanks so much for having me, Michelle. And I'm a great guinea pig to try this new format because this is kind of where we're all living these days and learning the virtual world. And welcome everybody on Facebook Live. It's great to see people here.
So just so you guys know what to do. So feel free to join in the conversation. You can post questions in the Facebook comments. Joy and I will be monitoring it for the next week or so. And Joy is actually raffling off a signed copy of her newest book. So you can either comment and join the raffle in the Facebook post or come into the Aram Public Library and enter the raffle that way too. So let's learn a little bit about Joy. Joy, can you tell us how you became, like, how did you become an author? What was the moment that you knew you wanted to write?
Well, I have been a writing teacher for about 20 years, and I attended a lot of writing workshops to help my students to become better writers, especially creative writing. And I kept thinking, oh, this is so much fun. It was so much fun to teach it. And in a past life prior to being a teacher, I was a journalist. So I have a journalism degree from UW-Madison, and I was a newspaper editor in a past life before becoming a teacher. So I think writing has always been in my blood. It's certainly always been something I've loved doing, and I had an opportunity to start launching my own writing and get back into it when I became semi-retired from teaching. And instead of grading English papers and creating lesson plans, I started writing mysteries, and it just has something that's taken off. I enjoy it so much. It's such a good time.
So so you started to write, and was the publishing process, was it difficult? I'm sure, you know, we as readers have read many stories or interviews with authors that they wrote, you know, X amount of manuscripts before they were accepted. How was that process for you?
Uh, well, the nice thing right now for anyone who is an aspiring author is that there's more than one way to get published. And um, I know a lot of different authors now that I'm part of the writing community, and you can become a traditionally published author through a lot of time and effort, and also finding an agent. You need to go through that process, and it can take years. I know people who it has taken years to do that. And I started down that road and got a little impatient and decided that, the other two options were to either self-publish or to do what I did, which is a hybrid publishing. So you still have to find a publisher that wants to read your work and accept your work as publishable or publish worthy, but then they work with you, and you work together, and you get an editor, and that part requires an investment of your time and money. So it isn't quite the same as a traditional contract, but it's a combination of the two. So that's the road that I decided to go down. I was very lucky. The first publisher I submitted to called and said, we really like this and we want to publish it and we think it's a good fit for us.
Oh,
I think that's just luck as far as I'm concerned. So that's a Wisconsin publisher. They're called Orange Hat, and they have now diversified. They now have two more imprints. So they're a growing publishing company, and they do both traditional and hybrid publishing. So I've been really fortunate to keep working with them.
Awesome, awesome. That must have been so thrilling. I can only imagine.
It truly was. It truly was. And I think that as I've gone along, I've just become a better writer as well, because working with an editor is essential. And
Oh,
no
yeah.
matter how good you think you are, everyone needs an editor.
No kidding. I find that often in my job. So let's talk a little bit about your mysteries. First of all, what could be better than a bakery, a winery with a little sheep farm on the side? So can you give us a little glimpse of where the town that your mysteries take place, and a little bit about your protagonists and your characters?
Sure. Yeah. Deep Lakes is a fictionalized town that's comprised of a whole lot of Wisconsin things. It has lakes, it has rivers, it is a small town atmosphere. It has a very cute downtown. It's a touristy town. It and I think it offers all the best things, and a combination of things you could find no matter where you went in Wisconsin. And I kind of wanted it to be where people might look at it and say, "Oh, that might be my town," but I wanted to keep it a fictional setting so that it couldn't necessarily be pinpointed into any specific town. Um, it's a town where people people know everyone, and they're kind of in each other's business, but they also then, and in the end, they kind of want what's best for the community. So, and they most often come together as a community to make things right again. My protagonist is Frankie Champagne, and she is a Scandinavian Irish French.
Just like Wisconsin.
Just like Wisconsin, yeah, combination. And her best friend is a Hispanic woman named Carmen, and they grew up. They were childhood friends, grew up together, and Carmen and her husband have a sheep farm. And when Frankie wanted to go into business, she needed someone practical, because Frankie is a little bit of a dreamer, an idealist, somebody who always wants justice to prevail.
Of
And she,
course. What sleuth doesn't? What
right.
detective doesn't?
Right. And she's a little nosy, but she wants to be taken seriously. She herself was a journalism major. We write what we know. And she never really worked in the journalism field. So she's running this bakery and winery combination. And as if that isn't enough for her to do, she has an opportunity to freelance as a journalist. And so she wants to be kind of no she wants to make her mark. She wants to prove that she can be an investigator, not just any kind of journalist, but an investigative journalist.
So the research process, of course, that's something that I'm very interested in, coming from a library background. And I'm assuming with your journalist background that that is something that really was interesting to you as well. So can you talk a little bit about your research process, or how your own investigative technique comes into the stories?
um, oh gosh, yes. Okay, so yeah, those are kind of two separate questions. My own investigative technique, I think, very much like Frankie, is not to believe in the word impossible. Well, sure, I can do this. I'll just ask people. I'll just step into a place, and out of curiosity, and if somebody doesn't throw me aside or kick me out, then I'll stay, and I'll just keep asking questions. And I think that's one of the things that Frankie does. She doesn't sometimes understand that maybe she's in the wrong place at the wrong time. She just feels like it's an opportunity to do some investigating and some snooping, and she's going to take advantage of that opportunity. But um, but on the other hand, I was a small town assistant newspaper editor for a small paper, and you have to be able you have to make friends with everybody. I
Mhm.
mean, if you really want information in a small town, you can't come across as, with a big ego, and you have to have respect for the people who you're asking questions from and trying to get information from. And that's something you really learn I in the journalism field. Um, and then let's see, what was the other part of that question? Shoot.
I think that's, we've got that. But
Hey.
how, as you were talking, I was wondering how Frankie's baking interests came.
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah,
also wondered how Frankie has all this energy. I mean, a bakery, a winery, it's like the perfect combo.
it it is. And I started, I have inserted a lot of my own background into my characters and stories because writing from experience is what I know, and I can make it much more authentic that way. And I started baking when I was very little because my mom is a great baker. She's fantastic. And my dad was the recipient of her great baking and continued to encourage it because he had a terrible sweet tooth. So, so I learned baking from the ground up from little on, and it's always been just a joy. It's an escape. It's just wonderful to create something and to be able to hand it over and share it with a whole bunch of people. And so many people say food is love, and everybody smiles when you bring bakery in. They
Oh yeah,
nobody
it's
ever
all about
nobody ever turns it down.
it's all about butter, right? Butter and
It's all
sugar.
it is. It is for sure. Butter makes the world better. Yes. And and then, I started becoming interested in wine. Um, as a young adult, I thought, well, I don't how do you pick out a wine? And so I tried to learn a little bit about it, but what I found just in the last 10 or 15 years is with Wisconsin having this wonderful viticulture. We have a we have so many wineries here, and it's a growing industry.
It
And
is.
so I started doing firsthand research, my husband and a set of friends, and we started going to wineries. And I became really interested though in the process, like how do you get to this from this vineyard to this bottle of wine? And that was what I wanted to know. And then I also wanted to know, like, what's the difference between grape varieties, and how do you produce good wines and different kinds of wines. And I started trying to develop a palate, and I think I've done pretty well, and it's an enjoyable pastime. And so my husband and I even started making wine with this group of
Oh wow.
friends. We thought, well, I wanted to be authentic as possible. So I thought we're going to try making wine too and seeing really what this is all about. So that is where so some of my research comes in as I'm just going to go into it hands on, and then some of it, of course, like any other research, people will tell you it is painstaking. You track down your sources, you read more books, you call people up who are experts in the field, and you assemble all that information and you put it together and you try to create something believable, but you still want it to be fun fiction. At least I want it to be fun fiction.
So thank you for those little insights into your process and your research. Joy's going to take a few minutes to get to read a short excerpt from one of her books. And I'm going to close my screen so you guys can focus on Joy. And don't forget to ask us questions during the week. And Joy has also very generously given us a discount code, which I will put in the post for you all. But don't forget, the library has her books as well.
Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate that. All right. So this is an excerpt from my second book in the series, which is called Deep Bitter Roots. And it just will give you a little bit of a flavor of where Frankie is going to be going in this mystery as she is cornered by the local mayor of Deep Lakes. Frankie, Do you have a few minutes? You're on my list of people to call about the Deep Lakes Roots Fest. It was meant to be that I bumped into you here. Adele Lundgren was as astute as she was energetic, with a sincere devotion to her job as mayor. She'd already served 2 full terms and was halfway through her third, yet she showed the same contagious enthusiasm from her first year on the job. An expert delegator, Adele was nearly impossible to say no to, because a person could rarely get a word in edgewise when conversing with her. Tall and squarely built, Adele raced from topic to topic, losing her conversation partner in the process. Plus, she always managed to be on the move as she spoke, beating her conversation partner to the finish line and leaving that person in the dust, wondering what had just happened. Such was the case now. The highlight of the festival this year will be rededicating Spurgeon Park and unveiling all the new additions, the gazebo, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, wouldn't it be perfect to have Emily there, Emily Spurgeon, for the dedication? And you're perfect to help write a few words, work with her on a short presentation, something to remind everyone of the history of Deep Lakes. It's 30 years this year. I mean, the park. So Emily agreed to meet you. Here's your phone number. It's unlisted. Have a good week. Frankie was gasping for air, her mind twisting and turning along the pathways of the discourse that had just occurred. She had several questions competing for rank and order in her brain, but found herself standing alone outside Adele's Cadillac, Adele inside, smiling and waving as she drove off. Frankie stared at the sticky note with Emily Spurgeon's phone number. She was the daughter of Elmer Spurgeon, owner of Deep Lakes Granite Works and the elegant granite mansion the family built around the turn of the century. She was a recluse for the past decade or longer. How old would Emily be now? Frankie mused. She had no idea. Oh, well, she thought, tucking the paper into her purse and loading up her Frontenac grapevines. She'd just been given an Adele assignment and dismissed. How hard could it be helping Emily Spurgeon write a short speech, rededicating the park? What had Adele said about a presentation? Frankie had no idea, nor did she have any idea. She was walking into a house of tangled secrets and a deeply rooted past that connected the granite quarry to both happy and disturbing pieces of the town's history, which would soon be unearthed.
So thank you. So we have completed our very short introduction to our very first author event. Joy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I have posted the coupon code for anyone interested in your books in our post. And please feel free to comment throughout the week if you have questions about Joy's writing process, like, does Joy listen to music when she writes? How long does it take Joy to write a book? And what is next on Joy's plate? Don't forget, Aram Public Library has her books. Come in and check them out. And Joy, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. And we'll be very happy to answer any of your questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Good night.
Good night.